what do we need for this one?
So, just a couple questions.
Sure.
The device designation, when, what is that going to?
So device designation, I would say, plays the biggest role on your schematics.
Okay.
As you're drawing your symbols, you normally open contacts, terminal blocks, etc. That MP1 that you see here as an example for a part, that shows up right above the symbol itself. Whereas
Right.
the high-level assignment and location is generally not shown in schematic, but it's just nice to know structure-wise, so we can have a device tree structure that makes sense, like physical locations, especially when you build bigger projects.
And the higher
But
level assignment is what?
high-level assignment is if you had like panel 1, panel 2, panel 3, like a bigger scope of a project. That's usually when I would involve high-level assignment.
Okay.
But if you're just drafting one panel, it's kind of over the top to use it on such scope.
And then assemblies, when do you create an assembly?
So assemblies you would never create unless you really need to. So for example, if you had to create a cable purely for reference, as in like a dynamic cable, so not a cord, is it like a off-the-shelf item cord that you go, Best Buy and buy a cord.
Right.
But if you actually wanted to build a cable, like actually instructions for somebody to build a cable, so in that case, I would take one connector for one end, one connector from the other end, and the cable that goes in between, and take those three items and make it into an assembly, and just give it a name like cable 1.
Right.
That's
Okay.
the quote-unquote times I would actually use it dynamically in the project.
All right. That makes sense.
Yeah. Or anything else you want to put together so you don't have like 100 different parts laying all over the place. You can select multiple things. For example, not in your case, but if you were to make like modular enclosure that has like each wall is a separate thing, mounting plate is a separate thing, every single shelf is a separate thing. So once these items are kind of all over the place, you can highlight all of those items and just say, making an assembly as in like one rack,
Right.
at the end, like one assembly piece.
Okay. We haven't really talked about mounting holes yet, but I guess there's another question. How do you know if the component that you're moving from the library is the panel version or the schematic version?
So there's no such thing as versions, as in your one component that you see in the library already contains both the model and the schematic in the component itself, just like you see here. Right? If you just make the 3D preview slightly smaller, so we can see a little bit more of the library content there. So your 3D preview windows, just make it smaller. There you go. So for example, in this example of this terminal block has, let's say, 10 possible electrical connections. Like each hole, each termination is one electrical connection. We could have made this terminal block as a single symbol with 10 holes on it, as in just like this little block picture with 10 different connections on it. Like we could have replicated this look of the 3D preview as in just like one giant block in schematic.
Yeah.
However, from an electrical schematics perspective, I don't think UL would have cared either way. The only reason that individual symbols for each individual contact, it gives you more flexibility to take a ground and place it on one sheet, take maybe another ground on a different sheet, meaning just multiple grounds and multiple sheets, where it's not a singular one symbol where all of these logic lines for all of these different wires have to go back, quote unquote, to the source sheet where one symbol is placed. That's usually the only flexibility you get with multiple symbols. But when you are building these components, the component that you start building from is usually compiled of, you start with the 3D model that you have, and then all individual symbols that go with it.
Okay. And then in the component cloud, I was confused because I would hit download and it would say, what would it say? It would say something about downloading it, and it would do a little spinny wheel, and then I would never know if it was over here or not. I would go search for it over here, and it wasn't there.
Okay, so from a process perspective, let's just use your example that you have here on the screen. I'm not quite sure what that is. Looks like a rail, right?
It's DIN-rail because I didn't know that there was just an option up here.
Yeah, so what you see in the toolbar itself, in the DTM, is just in regards to this DIN-rail topic. The DIN rail itself in the tool is purely a dynamic part, as in doesn't have a part number, it's just dynamic. It helps you with the layout, kind of quick figuring out, do I have enough space? Can I fit everything on a mounting plate? Do I need a bigger enclosure? That's usually when you refer to just the toolbar DIN rails themselves.
Okay.
Okay. You can save DIN rails, or ducts for that matter, into your library with predetermined lengths. As in, you can no longer have it as a dynamic part, but actually a library part.
So I won't have to go and change all of my DIN rail. If I use it from this toolbar, I won't have to go and change it to a regular part before
You will have to, for purely reasons that your dynamic part is just a virtual part. It's not tied to any part number. Right? It's not a real part number. Anything that's not coming from the library, that does not have a part number associated with it, it's just a part purely for layout reasons.
Okay. So
for example, you went to the library, you went to the component cloud, you found the DIN rail right from a standard perspective.
Yeah.
You click on cancel just for a second, or just explain the process, right? So in that top long search field, you would type in the part number that you're searching, right? The very, very top. If you put your mouse on it just so we can converse it a little bit easier. That one right there, right? So this is where you would type in your 199-DR1 part number, right? You're looking for it. You find it in this, well, let's just replicate the process. Let's just type that in. Just to replicate the process.
So you don't have to pick Rockwell?
Nope. Just go in the very, very top search bar, big search bar, right? 199-DR1. Right, press enter. Okay, so this is how you would start the process, right? You type in the part number you're searching for. You click on the object here that's found, right, in your item, select it. Once you select it, depending if this, let's just say, do you see the where it says Rockwell Automation, DIN mount rail description, etc. Right there, those 5 items. Sometimes in that list right there that you see, depending on if you, for example, landed on a part that has a family or series of parts, meaning, for example, if you were to search for some VFD and you land on a page just like this, sometimes those VFDs will have a drop-down menus in here where you say, pick the rating that you want, pick the current rating, pick the power that you want. So it's a one part, but has multiple configurations. So you can use these little drop-down menus to find one specific thing.
Yeah, I would like to search for the VFD actually, because I could not find it earlier.
All right. If you have a part number or series name, let me know what that is.
And does this still work when you do the little star thing?
This one doesn't require star. So
Okay.
This one goes by anything that is currently there. And just as a general statement, for example, you typed in a very long fancy number, right?
Yep.
Sometimes these searches are sometimes more helpful because I know even on searching for stuff on Google is sometimes these entries, they carry a dash, they don't carry a dash, they have a space, no space. So depending how you type it in, you may not find it. So sometimes if I don't find something, I usually trim my search result just the first 4 or 5 characters to just see, is my series found or whatever it might be, right? But in your case, you found a result that's already there, right? So you can see the preview, you have a 2 result series. So you can click on the one that says already fancy long name already there that matches your search. Click on that ones, right? So in this case, as this opens up, there's tons of data on the left side. The only thing I would just double check are any of those drop-down menus present in this list. I don't see them, but let's just say scroll downward to see the full list of anything. So this is the end of the list. So there's no other quote unquote configuration items, meaning the part number that you search is this piece right here. Mm-hmm. Now, depending how large these objects are that you're searching, sometimes these models from OEMs are really large, 30, 50 megs, depending how complex they make them. So this search that you just saw on the right side, kind of circling, loading this little 3D preview, etc. When this 3D preview is complete, your first step there is to click on this big download CAD button. That's the first step. Okay, just the top one, right? So now it's going to go through compiling this 3D view. It's going to search for any symbols that might be associated with it, mapping, these language translation, all of this stuff that the CLX plugin does in the background is kind of what's happening right now just on this platform. So this little pulsating thing that you see there, that could be happening for a couple minutes. It does not prevent you to continue your searches, as in search for the next component and the next component. So it's kind of starts piling up in this queue here that you see. Mm-hmm. But let's just assume this pulsating process is complete. what it will turn into is from this pulsating, let's say iconography here, it will turn into a picture. And then into the right where it says information, it will look just like the bottom column where it says download, information, delete. Your last step in this process is to click on that little download icon itself. So that right there where your mouse is right now. That will be the last step in this, like I want this to be downloaded. This window will pop up. This is purely a plugin self-info, if you will. There's nothing in here you will ever need to edit, modify, change, or anything like that. So it's purely informational. And you can click OK to save. So now, once you click this plugin to save, what happens is the database editor, so go ahead and open up your editor for a second. Click on that. Cancel out of this, consider this was our deeds. So on the bottom left corner on the bottom of your window, you'll see like multiple messages that are kind of going through. It starts with a starting E3 CLX message, which is that plugin that you just saw. It says importing component so-and-so. Whatever the items are in between it, for example, it couldn't open up the editor wasn't available. Okay, that's fine. And then all the other messages, they'll kind of like keep fluttering down below. The last message you'll see to know that the process is complete is when, actually there will be a message to say the import is complete from a content of this message. So I don't know if you accidentally click on this message. Can you scroll further into the messages, further down?
Oh, yep. That's the end.
It just said finished. Okay, I just didn't see it. So when it says it's finished, now, depending on what kind of part you landed on. So let's go back to the CLX window for a moment. Back to the editor itself. Yeah, the E3 window. Okay, so in this search as a whole, click on the big blue arrow on the top left corner, kind of like beginning of search, if you will.
This?
Yep, click on that once. Wait for this to show up. Okay, so I would say at the beginning of your search, as you are doing your searches anyways, this is kind of like a beginning of the candle, end of the candle kind of approach. It doesn't really matter where you start. What I want you just to be aware of, on the bottom left corner of all of these lists, there is a electro quality drop-down menu. So as you see in this numbering scheme list there is, for example, 4 million different parts in here. Now 4 million parts could be individual symbols, individual components, individual devices. Disassembled parts isn't like not assembly, but individual parts. That's what that quantity is from. And then you have 3 different qualities, as in basic, where you might just land on a part that has just attributes, just symbols, maybe an empty shell of a device with associated model that may not be fully built up model by just like a downloaded step file from the OEM.
Mm-hmm.
Or you have these sponsored parts. So sponsored parts is usually parts that have more scrutiny in their reviews as to like somebody hand touched it, verified it, fixed it, or built it for that matter. Meaning they're much higher quality parts than anything else that might be on this list.
Okay.
So you can pre-select this sponsored list where only like when you do your search, if there are multiple results, if you will, at least you know when I'm searching for sponsored list, I should expect higher quality outcomes, right, of all these items that might be in here. Where you can go down these lists and further refine and filter things, etc. Based on all the stuff that you already did. If you scroll back to the left side of your window, where you can select different keywords to further itemize these 50,000 parts. You can even pre-select even file types, right? You were searching for, click on each one of these just as a drop downs, right? So in here you have a whole bunch of different stuff that may not relate to you at all, right? You don't care about ePlan data, right? It's not related to DTM itself. So as a file types, for example, click where it says filter by and type in E3S. So E3S will be a native file. So what am I thinking of here? E3, let's save that.
Oops.
I never filtered by that. But
And this is just for like all of my searches going forward. If I were to type in the part number here, then it would.
If you type in the part number and you only hit one result, then there's not really no point to search anything further. As in like no point
right.
filtering further because there's only one search result, right?
How do you know if that one search result has all of the things that you need, like the model, the symbol?
you wouldn't know until you download it.
Okay.
You can go by these little icons that you see on the top left of the picture, where it says E3 and the little DTM logo. Those are usually, yeah, that one right there, right? So those would usually imply it's a higher quality part. If you only see like an OEM logo, it means the data is purely just from OEM, which could imply it's only a step file, as in there's no symbols associated with it, etc.
Okay.
But for example, even on the right side right now, I see this thing pulsating for way too long.
Yeah.
I've run into it before, and I really don't know the reason behind it. So if you click on the information, it says information, click on that. Now see here, in some cases, this right here will show me the download is ready, but it looks like this is.
Yeah, I've seen that.
So it's must be a pretty large object that it's trying to disassemble, if you will. So I would just leave this run in the background. I wouldn't close it, as in whatever it's doing right now, you can let it go. You can click on back to continue searching. It's just all the stuff that you're searching, you just keep going searching for next pieces themselves.
Okay. Let me.
But yeah, your best bet is just the keyword up on top.
So can you do power supply, for instance?
Yeah, any of these little preview prompts that you see there, you can select those. Obviously, those are broad strokes. There's obviously tons of these devices out there from what you're searching. But I would say if you already have a part numbers, then I would search by part numbers first.
Okay.
Even if it's just the beginning of the series, right? If it's like you have this VFD that's 755 series, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you can start with that just to see if the series is in there, just in general. So just type in a couple characters, press enter. If you see some random mechanical parts, of course, you landed on the wrong page, kind of a thing. But then you can keep adding one extra character to see where does it break. But yeah, just like this right here, this looks okay based on the parts that you had in your screenshot, on your picture.
Yeah, it's something I couldn't find though, because it was the actual, the disconnect handle.
Now the disconnect rod itself, are you referring to the rod itself?
Yep.
So rod itself will, I would say, most likely not going to be part of it.
Okay.
Considering let's say this assembly that you see here is a whole, this is probably the only thing you'll get out of it.
Gotcha.
The most things that you will not find are the mechanical parts, as in purely mechanical, not electrical parts. But
okay.
Considering I did that rod myself, so let's just pretend we're building that rod ourselves. Go to your library database editor just to show you kind of a quick way how you can build something from nothing, if you will. Let's see here, this database editor. You are in the model tab. So yeah, right click on the model anywhere in the bottom section in the library itself, or click reset search. Just make sure we get back to basics. All right, right click anywhere in here and select new model. Okay. So when you say select new model, this is your starting place. Actually, what you see on the screen, if you can actually zoom really good at it, have this kind of in a full picture. This thing that you see here, it's actually a cube. Okay, so it's not just a two-dimensional part, it's actually a cube. You see it as a 2D graphic right now, but it does have a Z height that's associated with it. Okay, so to start from this, to build our rod, if you will, grab this outline of this square and move it as such where the bottom left corner of this outline of the graphic. So let me put you here. To just give you here click by click, if you will. Click between these adjustment knobs. If you were to click on the knobs themselves, you're resizing the square. So all I want you to just move it. So click anywhere on the line itself. Move it up right where the bottom left corner is on the origin point itself. So keep dragging it up right till the bottom left corner of this square is in the origin point.
Here?
So keep in the black circular origin
point. Oh, okay.
I know what you were trying to do now. Okay, so yep, right there, and just release. Okay, so this X and Y that you see red and green, that just follows your outline in itself. As in the origin point, it's its own entity, if you will. You cannot move the origin point, you can only replace it. So just to exercise that once, in the toolbar up on top, straight up from this kind of origin point itself, there's a red origin point image that you see there, one item to the right, that one right there. Click on that and just place it anywhere here on the sheet. Doesn't matter, it's just for exercise quick, right? So you can only position this origin point, but you cannot move it. Okay, so that as long as that's understood, that's all that really needs to be done. So either you can place it right, or you can move the text itself. That's all it takes, right? So that's most basic principle about this. Now, considering you want that rod to be some specific thickness, right, that your what existent rod is, you have to know what that is. I don't know how thick that rod might be, so either you can go to shop floor and find out, is it a whatever, 1/4 of an inch by 1/4 of an inch from a rod size perspective, right? So that's a must know kind of data point. If you know it, what you can do is grab your dimensioning tool. Actually, before you even grab the dimensioning tool, click on this outline. Minimize this. We can circle back to this at some point. Just minimize it. Okay. Click on this outline of the cube. As you scale it, so grab that top right corner of this cube itself. Okay, scale it. Just move it slightly up. Does it show you dimensions, right? So you see the dimensions right now. In this case, just because I think we landed in the IEC standard, you have in millimeters here. But you will see the dimensioning showing up right away. So if you say, all right, my rod is 5 by 5 millimeters, as an example, you can scale it at least close to its size that it needs to be, not the height. So consider this just being a cross section, not the height. So just make it 5 by 5. So 5 by 5 millimeters. So this would have been like 1/4 inch by 1/4 inch as an example. So this is just a cross section of your rod itself. To add the height to it, right click anywhere in the background. Say model properties, and what you're actually modifying is the Z height on the left side. You have a size there on the left side, so put your mouse slightly to the left, right there. That is the height of this cube. So let's say for funnies, just make it 30, just so you can see the visual difference. Click apply on your module. Okay, in this preview window itself, drag it slightly off to the side so you can actually see the profile. That is what you just built. Oh. Which is a full functioning 3D step model in all its essence, what a step model does. So whether you need a circuit breaker, VFD, whatever, rod in this case, this is the quickest and fastest way to have just a quick envelope, like a full functioning, proper scaled envelope of any part. So even if you don't find it in the component cloud, you can still, quote unquote, scale it to be a VFD envelope, right, of your full envelope, to just say I have all the parts I need, even though it's just a step model.
Should I name it or no?
So in this case, so depending obviously what we're making right now for mounting description for the rod itself, would rod itself need anything?
It could just be extension shaft.
So for example, right, so context here, we have a rod in this case. We'll have the disconnect switch on one end, right?
Yep.
And on the other end of the rod will be likely the knob itself.
Yep.
Okay. So now, if you look through 3 of these components, and actually for that, I'll give you a visual.
And I actually have the size. It's actually a 12-inch.
Length itself. Okay.
Yep.
That's all right. Yeah. Let me show you here. Let me know if you see my screen. And I'll just talk to you.
Yep, I see it.
Just find this one part to enable it. This is a disconnect switch. This guy right here. Okay. And I'll show this in 3D because it makes a little more sense. And in one of our next sessions, I can go over this file with you and actually share this file with you as well. So I feel that this is a good training ground file. But let's just say you are building this part right here. In my case, this is a 4-way part, as in I have a knob, I have a rod that I built, and I have this contactor. Let's just say I downloaded this from Component Cloud, and maybe this came from Component Cloud. Okay. Now this assembly is a 4-way assembly. Probably the most complex part you can build in DTM, just because it has so many reference points, as in this goes on top of this, this goes on top of that, this goes on top of this, etc. So it's just a complexity question, not a technical question. All of them work exactly the same way. One slot point, one slot point, one slot point, right? If I were to make it just like a one-way street, as in this can only go on top of this can only go on top of that, and this can only go on top of that. As in like a one-way street. Now, if you want to make it buildable both ways. Then you have to think about like, okay, my rod now needs mounting point for the dot, for the knob, and a mounting position for this guy, so I can grab this and put it on the shaft, which sounds kind of backwards, but that's just a technicality. Like, you can do it. Do you have to do it? Probably not. But nevertheless, that's just the idea. Like, you can do that.
Mm-hmm.
So now, if I actually look at these items in my device tree structure, let me kind of put all these views somewhere else, just to show you this from a device tree structure, what the outcome of all of this stuff is. Collapse it first. All right, so I'll do a control left click on the knob. Here's my knob. Here's a switch, right? Here's the model, and the knob itself has two locations on itself. As in, I have, like, this knob has two receiving slot points. Like, if I take this rod, I can say go onto, let's say, slot point switch top. So I can go this direction onto the cell. The rod itself, it's right here, right? This is my rod.
Mm-hmm.
Rod has a model. And in this case, I have a rod as two different destination points. I want to be able to install my rod on the, let's say, left side of this switch, right side of this switch, top side of this switch, from a rod's perspective. And I can also add this rod on this knob itself.
Mm.
So what all of this means is I can grab, actually, give me just one more item here from this perspective, guy. So this contactor has a couple different locations itself, as in, I have to specify on this device, where is that slot point on the left, where is that slot point on the right, where is that slot point on the top. So all of these parts can actually point to each other and snap onto these locations that I'm specifying.
Okay.
So now if I take this rod by the model and I drag it over on the switch, oops, let me set this back, did this earlier somehow. Let's go back. Let's put this back. All right, let's try this one more time. From a rod's perspective, taking the rod and say, I'm placing this rod. So do you see the description here in the info column that says switch top? Okay, if I release it here, the rod goes exactly on that switch top that I have defined.
Oh, yeah.
Right, so the same token, if I take this rod and I say install it on the left side of this item, I think there might be interference some kind in here, but they're all the right side, depending what my installation requirements are. But I'm doing this purely here from the device tree structure, which makes this so much easier than trying to mount these on the 3D world, etc. It's just hard.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when these descriptions help so much, instead of just being called aux-t, as you saw earlier.
Yeah.
Right? That's where these descriptions actually start making sense as to why they're there for in the first place.
Okay.
So you can have this visual as to, like, okay, if I grab this rod, what my installation end item should be.
Okay.
And of course, this game goes both from the knob perspective, from this guy's perspective, from whatever. Each one of these individual items are their own entities, if you will, right? As to, like, where do they land and from. But as long as you understand these slot point principles, that I can define a spot, quote unquote spot, on my 3D models to say, this is the slot point for bracket, for top, for left, for right. You are defining these spaces, not just locations, but also depths in some cases, where these items all kind of snap onto each other.
And you had to add all those slot points for the rod that you created?
Yep. Everything that you see here as slot points, I created those.
Okay.
As in, like, I opened up your little 3D preview just like how you had. So let's just do that, just as a kind of quick exercise. I'm going to stop my screen. Let's go back to your model, or share your screen again if you mind, considering I interrupted your share. All right. So let's just assume you're making this model kind of from two ends, okay? Or you're going to be mounting two things from two ends on this rod. So first slot point that we're going to place, we're going to assume that's the top for the knob itself, as an example. So in your toolbar up on top, there's a yellow icon for the slot points, kind of toward the center. Yep, that's the slot point. That's where you are defining what the rod slot point should be. So for your description here is, for example, what I named on my rod as a switch top. right? So you know that's the side on which the switch should go on, as in your knob. So let's say make it even simpler, just call it knob. You can add a, any informational thing you type in here is just for your own reference, so you know, just like how I was drag and dropping my things, to know where things are actually going, okay? So knob, good enough. The Z position in this case, if you notice here, it's at 30 millimeters, as in this will be the top, based on, from the origin, 30 millimeters up, it's going to be your knob, which in this case is just happens to be the top of your model that you designed, okay? So click OK, that's going to be good enough. From a placement perspective, easiest one to kind of get this all done, because all of these items are quote unquote centered on top of each other, as in my knob is center of the rod is center of the little whatever assembly I have. So put your little slot point in the center of this rod. Again, to best of your ability right now. I understand that it's kind of snapping on the grid right now. If you press, let me see what's the one for half grid placement. I think it's shift. Shift will allow you to do like a mid placement, as in if your grid is like 0.1, by pressing the shift, it will allow you to press half steps, if you will. So zoom on it just a little bit so you have a little bit more control. I think shift, it gives you the half step. So you can tell the difference between like a rough step, meaning if you don't click on anything.
So you click on it, then you hit shift.
Let's see here. Shift first, then move. The shift and then select. And you always, and on these items, always click on the very, very center as best as you can, because there's just a small part that we just happen to click on. Okay. So let's just say to start from scratch again. If you click on your slot point, just to see the movement, control and hold center of your slot point, click and hold, move it, just so you can see the movement. Right? So you can see the movement. It's much finer, right, when you're doing that. Again, from approximate placement, you can do approximate placement. It's not going to play a huge role. And again, as you do 10, 50 of these parts, you'll understand the difference between placing something at center, the benefits of it, and placing it directly at the origin point, and what the benefits of that are. Both of them are going to save you a couple clicks in one process. It's going to hurt you in a couple clicks in another process. So it's really like 50-50 thing. So again, until you understand a little bit the implications of, why do we place it here, why we didn't place it somewhere else, that's all kind of like a long story scheme.
Yeah.
So this will take care of our knob. Okay, so let's add another slot point, and this is going to be for the bottom of the rod. So that will be good. For example, call that your disconnect switch, or we're going to call it on the back end.
Or back end?
No, I just meant like however you want to call it, the other end of your rod. Call it a top of the disconnect switch. You can spell it out as big as you want. Really not driving anything. As long as you know what it is, that's all that matters. Okay. Okay, so this is good. So now the Z position for this is likely going to be 0.
Dang it.
It's okay. We can modify it after you place it. Place it at the origin. That's all right. Or even on top of the other one. Doesn't really play a big role. Your shift a little mid-step. Shift or control, whatever you say earlier.
Dang it.
Again, first one is to move it. So control click in the center. Control click in the center, right by the arrow. Okay, move it first. Move it first, just so you can see it move. So that's step 1. See it move. Okay, once it's moving, yeah, that's good. Right? Let go and place it. That's good enough. Now, every single step, every single slot point that you place, just like how you just did, those slot points get created as an object in your quote-unquote new model 3 that you see on the left side in your tree structure, because we haven't given this rod name yet. But if you expand that front, and you'll see the little 2 additional slot points that we just created. Okay, one is called knob, one is called disconnect switch, right? Now, do you see the little 30 millimeter that you added in the info column? Do you see that? You were just hovering right there to your right, right? That 30 millimeter reference. So those are all those extra things that we added to see as informational pieces in the info column, where you said, I want to see description, I want to see distance to the origin, I want to see the 2D view, etc. That's where it's coming from. So if you want to see what that value is for the second one, you'll have to make the window slightly wider, or just hover over it. That looks like it's going to work as well, but just to see it visually, right? So what our second item needs is not to be at 30. In this case, 30 is the top of the rod where the knob is. That should be the opposite end. As in, right-click on the slot point. I'm going to change that from 30 to be actually at 0. So properties. Click on your stop. There's your Z point and just set it to 0. Or whatever that needs to be, but let's just say in our simple example, let's just set that to be 0. So now you have one slot point at the beginning of the rod and you have one slot point at the end of your rod. So now these are actually factual locking jumpers, so to speak, for other items to snap onto.
Okay.
Okay?
Yeah.
So if you were to now, quote unquote, save this as a real part, right click in the background and want to give this model a real name or a name, considering this is not really a part number right now. So let's just change this model name to M underscore. Have that as a good practice just for all your models that you build, just so you can tell the difference between landing on a part and landing on a model. Trust me, it helps.
Okay.
So considering you don't have a part number for your rod, at least not right now, I don't think.
I do
Let's
have
just
one.
call this, if you have one, just go to type it in. I was just going to call it rod, but if you have a part number, that works.
Okay.
Okay. So for class, let's just, I don't know if you want to call this switch assemblies, or just see if there's a switch assemblies or anything like that on there as an existing category. If there's not, we'll just create a new one. Relays to timers, safety switches. Yeah, I don't remember what these are called. Let's just go again. For
right
models,
here.
not a huge.
Disconnects and switches.
Yep. Let's just
Or switch accessories.
Actually, in this case, this will be an accessory, not the switch itself. So that's actually more appropriate. And as a description, let's just type it in something that's either you have a fancy description from the OEM, or you can just call this something internal as a rod. That's good enough. If you had already existing length that you know that this was or is, you can type in, okay, this is a 12-inch rod, for example, right? As an example, right now we set it as a 30 millimeters just for training discussion's sake. But if you had some kind of specifics, you can add that here as a description. Again, this is just on a model. It's not even on the component yet. So let's click apply and okay. Let's be done with this part. All right, click on your front view so you're always in the good design view, if you will, on the model shape itself. So on the left side in your device structure of all your parts, right there. Yeah, double click on that front. So it actually gives you the good front view. There we go. So now anytime you're designing something, adding something, it's going to be in this view. Second thing that I normally do with all the parts, so again, it doesn't matter if it's a rod, if it's a VFD, or if it's a relay, right click on any of these adjustment knobs and say the graphic properties. All right, so in here, click on the hatch. The reason you are doing this particular step is if you were to leave this 3D step model as you just designed it and placed it in the panel, it will be completely clear. Okay, so in order to make it something other than clear, click on the pattern as a full pattern, so that's second selection, and as a color, click on the color drop down. From the color, select the lightest white in that first row that you see. Okay, so this is going to be, let's say, non-white, something less than gray, so any kind of text that you might use, again, on your contactors, VFDs, etc., will be visible. But of course, you can make this any color you want. But for right now, let's just keep it as gray, click apply, and okay. So this is good enough for all of these use cases. Okay, so right click in the background, and let's just save this to the library. Save to database, yes, and this is good enough. Okay, so now we created a model from nothing, meaning if you are struggling for parts, as again, very important step process is to say, if I don't find it in Component Cloud, if I don't find it on the OEM website, and I'm just struggling and it's a barrier to my project, this is one of those routes that you can say, I can make any part quickly, a 3D, I'm going to call it crude part from a design perspective, but it's going to help me with the proper spacing, proper 3-dimensioning, it's mountable. If I add electrical nodes on it, it's going to be perfectly fine part for any wiring, routing, etc., which on this part we haven't done yet, but consider it's just a rod itself. If we were making a contactor, etc., that'll be part of the last day of your training that you did, right? Where we can add these. Did you do that part? Do you remember doing that part where we added those electrical green arrows on a contactor itself? Okay, so that's the electrification, if you will, of these dumb step files. As in, sure, it's there for all space reasons, but if you actually want to wire up to it, we have to add those green arrows or those nodes on these step files themselves. So actually part becomes electrical, becomes smart, okay? But considering we just built a model for our rod, just the model itself, you cannot use that in the project. As in, it has to be a component. So in your library, anywhere, right-click anywhere in the library and say New Component. Actually, just down below, anywhere in your selections down in the library itself. All right, let's go one folder up so you're not on a device, meaning be on any, actually, here's the thing. If you click on a folder where the component should go to, so kind of like, okay, if we are building, what do we call it, switch assemblies, accessories,
disconnect, yeah,
just find that folder, disconnect switch, I think it was 2 up, there are accessories. So just land on that folder, just in general. So what happens is, if you say right click now and select new component, this component you're building now is automatically going to have this disconnect and switch assemblies as its property as we're building it, which I'll show you here in about 2 clicks. So here is where we give the actual component part number, which is your 19 number that you had. So the real number that will show up on the BOM. Okay. Anything that you built, anything that you personally built, change that version text to be your company name. So anything that you build at this point will be considered company intellectual property. Not that one, that's a version. Version you can leave as 1. That's actually a very important one. That has to stay 1 on the very beginning. The third text down, that's the one that says version text. Third cell down. That one right there. Okay, you can delete that and say this is now ACI's intellectual property, if you will. Okay, device letter code in this case, this is what we were discussing earlier. Like, what should a device letter code be? On all electrical components, it should be the electrical, I'm going to call it a standard, if you will, like C for capacitor, R for relay, K for contactor, etc. So for rod doesn't really have any designation itself. You can call it rod for that matter. Or you can type it in as a rod. It doesn't need to be a letter. It can be also a name or a couple characters. So you can literally type it in as rod. So the thing about this rod reference, anytime, consider this for all your other things that you may be building. How do you want to see this component when you do your drag and drop from the library into your project? So in this case, if it's rod, the first item you bring into the project is going to be rod 1. The second item you bring into the project is going to be rod 2. So it helps you already give those device designators that should be there by default. Okay, so it helps you a little bit with this device nomenclature stuff, where you don't have to rename anything manually. Okay, so if you think of it from that perspective. Okay, so this info is good. Considering we started from, actually we didn't start from anything, this is a blank one, so I'm surprised the name down below shows it all. Okay, let's click on next. All of this description of item that we have in here, just be surprising that we're on this. Why it's even there. This GBK10, I don't know where we even grabbed it from. Let's delete all of these fields, as in let's just leave everything blank.
Okay.
Just delete all of them. Select them and just press delete. I have to do just one selection at a time. Actually, I'll show you a little trick. If you put your mouse on GAK10, there is a differentiation factor between a cell being selected, just a cell, versus if you do a double tap, that's when the editing happens. So there are like 2 modes of what happens. If purely just the cell is selected, as in you don't see the cursor, you can just press delete on your keyboard and we'll delete the contents of it. Okay, there you go. Again, once you do it once, it's easier to do than describe.
Oop.
Okay, so a lot of these things like have all of these language description items, etc. That's like if you actually started from scratch, those wouldn't even show up. I think somehow we clicked on something where it has some content. The only thing that is important on all of this stuff, on all this attribute stuff, is the first one, article number. That has to be your part number. So that's your 19R4. Also, to make things easier, don't type it in, just to show you something. Do you see that component name that's just above it? You can copy it from there, just like how you just did. Control C to copy, Control V to paste. All right, that works. Class is your folder name. So again, for your components, this is more so important than for models. But for components, you can use this drop-down menu for class and pick your whatever switch accessories that we ended up picking earlier. Okay, description is what should show on your BOM table as a description. So again, if you want to just keep it short for time being, that's okay. All right. All right, that's good. Looks good enough to me. Again, you can use spaces, etc. If needed. You're not required to like jump it all together. That's just up to you. Even just a regular space will do. It doesn't need to be an underscore in this case. Okay. It's just a description field, as in you can name it anything. Okay. Let's click on next. All right. Yeah, we definitely started with something that was already entered. Click on completely new structure. I think somehow accidentally we clicked on the bus bar. Click on next. Click finish. Okay. Click on something. Oh, this one. So this is where we would have started from. I think the other prompt was from the request earlier. Nevertheless, click on cancel here. We had, I think, 2 prompts at the same time. On your left side in the whole structure, go ahead and collapse all of that so we can actually see just the items that we care about. Just press the left to collapse it all. All right, now expand one, expand just component, and just select the second one, as in unselect the first one, so we don't mix things up. Okay, so now that this device that we just created is purely just an envelope, as in there's no models in it, there's no schematics or schematic symbols in it. It's just what you see on the screen right now. It's just an envelope with the part number and the name associated with it. Okay, so now to bring in the model that we created, so on your bottom left corner, you have your M194R, looks like it's selected as on your bottom of your screen, right there, okay? So you would normally search for this part. It just happens to be that you currently have it highlighted. But you would search for your model. Once you find your model, go ahead and select on it. Select it. Drag and drop it on this sheet. Okay. Now you have quote-unquote model associated with this component. So if you do a right-click and save, just right-click and save in this background. Save to database. Click yes. Now you actually created a part, like actually library part that is a component, that is a BOM number that's going to show up on your BOM. So now if you go to your project, you can actually drag and drop this in your panel. Okay, so if you search either by part number, whatever reference you have.
Okay.
You can search for it in case we saved it somewhere else or something. 194. Go ahead and type in the rest. Now it's not that part for sure. So it does not have the suffix of Rockwell. It's just S1. I think that's what we named it. So remove all of that extra stuff. That's probably the downloaded one from the component cloud, I'm guessing. Okay, press enter. Okay, that is the part that we just created. Okay, you can drag and drop it on the panel. Of course, it's just a dumb part, just stick if you will. Okay, so I see it on the mounting plate, right? You placed it. Now, if you go to the 3D view, you'll see that this item is whatever, 1.5 inches long, how long we created it. Tilt your model. So in this case, you're in 3D view. if you actually don't click on the plate itself, but on the empty space around the mounting plate, click and hold and drag. Click, hold, and drag. There you go. So now you can see this little rod that you see there as an example. Of course, we created just a random part just to prove a point.
Right.
But that is the example how you can make such parts. And this goes for, again, I say all the parts. Doesn't matter if you're creating contactors or VFDs, etc. You can make this empty envelope of a part and make it look real and normal step file.
Cool.
Okay. Now, to just prove a second point about making such parts, let's go back to your rod in the library.
Over here.
I know we exceeded our time for this. I'll make it very short. Let me see here what I'm going to do. Click on the rod. It's a good starting point, nevertheless. Just click a new model from the library. Sorry, from the library. Right-click anywhere in the library. Suggest a new model. Okay. We start with the same empty cube envelope, if you will. Now scale this to be something proportional to the size of a regular contactor, like maybe 2 inches wide, 4 inches tall, something to that equivalent. I know we're in millimeters, but just make it look like we're building a contactor, and you're looking at it as a front view, if you will. So just maybe slightly taller, bigger, kind of a thing. I understand it's just a matter of scale. Okay, so let's just assume this right here is a contactor, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And you go to Component Cloud, you don't find one. Go to OEM's website, you cannot find a step file itself, but they may have 2D views, as in most of the parts that are on OEM's website at least have 2D drawings. Sometimes you can get them from installation drawings, wiring drawings, manuals, etc. So you can grab either a picture, literally a picture from the OEM's website, or the CAD file. CAD file is preferred because you have a nice line art. It's usually a lighter file. But what you can do here is do a file import, or even copy and paste will do for image sake, where you can say import a drawing, import an image, and you can literally paste this in this 2D front view, whatever image that might be. Let's just use this what you have on the screen, sure. Import, click to place. You would scale it using your little edges, and this will end up being your actual front view picture in your panel. Which
nice.
Of course, again, if it's actually like the line art of your contactor, etc.,
right,
this will be perfectly sufficient just to give you that I don't have barriers in my project. Right? It's going to be fully functional for all intents and purposes. It's just a 2D front view anyway. It's in your drawings. And if you get the line art, that should be good enough just to get you going.
Okay.
And you still have your little Z alignments. You can still add your electrical nodes and whatnot. It's just not to have you any kind of barriers in your design.
Awesome.
All right. So again, I know we exceeded our time a little bit, but I hope it was just a value add to get these core principles across.
Yeah,
the
it was
more
great.
Of these you have, more questions you can ask.